Shabbat Shalom. Let's sing together this nigun. Yai la 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 ya la 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 yai la 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 ya la 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 yai la 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 yai la 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 ya la 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 yai la 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 ya la la yai la Let's continue with the singing of Shalom Aleichem. The words are found on page 24 of Mishkan Tefillah. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Asharet, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Asharet, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ba'olchem Shalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nideh Shalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nideh Shalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeichen Shalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Asharet, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
On the one hand, the stories of Genesis place a premium on movement. Abraham, Jacob, Rebekah, Sarah, Joseph, they're all often on the move. To discover new meaning in their lives, the characters of Genesis frequently get up and go. Yet on the other hand, there are moments within these stories of travelers that uphold the very human desire to arrive at that perfect place, our desire to stand still and claim a space, a location for ourselves. There's a poignant moment in this week's Torah portion when Abraham makes such a claim. Sarah has recently died, and Abraham, journeying in the promised land of Canaan, but in a region possessed, as the story states, by the Hittites, there Abraham seeks to purchase a burial plot. He petitions the Hittites, saying, "I am a resident alien among you. Sell me a burial site that I may remove my dead for burial." Abraham identifies himself to the Hittites as a resident alien. In Hebrew, he calls himself ger v'toshav. To define himself in this moment, Abraham juxtaposes two almost opposing terms, combining them with that powerful conjunction v, a word meaning or, and, but. I am a ger, Abraham says. I am a sojourner, a newcomer, a temporary dweller. And he states simultaneously, I am a toshav, a settler, a resident, an owner. Ger v'toshav anochi, Abraham declares. I am a ger and a toshav. I travel or I settle. I'm a temporary dweller, but I am an owner. I'm a newcomer, and I've always been here. Ger v'toshav anochi, binding together competing and complementary desires for travel and for arriving, ger v'toshav can serve as powerful shorthand for one's engagement with Judaism and one's movement within our synagogue community. As with the characters of Genesis, physical, spiritual, and intellectual movement fosters positive change, ownership, deeper connections between each other and with our texts, values, and rituals. That's the ger part of the equation. On the other hand, toshav acknowledges one's past experiences, from where you have come in your Judaism and what you already possess. Toshav perhaps also suggests where you want to end up next. Ideally, being ger v'toshav is a dynamic process. Figuratively, you travel, you move, you arrive, but then you head off again towards new ways of being, of understanding yourself, your synagogue community, and of Judaism as a whole. So Shabbat Shalom. My colleagues and I welcome you, our fellow Gerim v'Toshavim, our fellow sojourners. We welcome you to this, our virtual Mishkan, this momentary encampment. We hope that this hour of worship and the day ahead will provide all of us with moments of respite and relaxation. May we discover on this Shabbat an experience of stillness. May we have a sense of arriving. But we also need to seize this opportunity for rejuvenation. For after Shabbat ends, we will all continue to move forward on this never-ending and remarkable sojourn known as Judaism. And to kindle the lights for our encampment this evening, I invite our bar mitzvah for this Shabbat, Ethan Burson, along with his family, to light our Shabbat lights and to lead us in blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
And now I invite you, Ethan, along with your father, Mark, to lead us in Kiddush.
Because you're doing it. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, be'ahavat uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lama'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom tehila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahavat uvratzon, hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat.
Amen. L'chaim.
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 Well done, Ethan. We continue now with Lecha Dodi, page 20. We welcome Shabbat.
So this is a new melody for you guys. I learned it many years ago on a vacation in Crete, in a place called Chania. They had a very old synagogue, and this is the melody that I picked up there. It's pretty easy, so let's see if you could get it. Lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmianu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad u'shmo echad, L'shem u'tiferet v'litzchila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor habracha. Merosh mikedem mesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekabela. Hitoreri, hitoreri, ki ba'orech u'mi'ori. Uri, uri, shir daveri, kevod Adonai alayich bigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekabela. Boi v'shalom atemet bala, gam b'simcha u'b'tzola. Toch emunei am segula, boi chala, boi chala. Lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekabela.
Our call to prayer, Baruch Hu, page 28. Please rise if you are able. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim.
Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night.
Page 34.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto
Please be seated. We continue with the Via Havta on page 36, and we invite Noah Levine and Andrew Levitt to lead.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Adonai le'orechem emet.
Before you worry too much, Noah and Andrew are first cousins and are part of the same family pod. So, mazel tov to you and your whole family for next week. And of course to Ethan for this Shabbat. We sing the words of Micha Mocha on page 40.
Ya bye bye bim bim bam, ya ba ba bim bam, ya bye bye bim bim bam, ya ba ba bim bam. Ay 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 ay, ya ba ba bim bam. Ay 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 ay, ya ba ba bim bam. Mi chamocha vaylim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, norati lo tosefele, norati lo tosefele. Mahalechutecha ra'u banecha, bokei hayam, lifnei Moshe u'Miriam. Ze Eli anu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Ya bye bye bim bim bam, ya ba 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 bim bam. Ya bye bye bim bim bam, ya ba ba bim bam. Ay 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 ay, ya ba ba bim bam. Ay 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 ay, ya ba ba bim bam. ונאמר כי פד אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, our God, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. The words of Hashkivenu will sing together.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ushmor tzveiteinu, uvoeinu, l'chaim u'shalom, ve'ata ve'adonai. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu Adonai Eloheinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Eloheinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'chaim. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim.
We continue the singing with the special song for this Shabbat day, a day where we can take a deep breath and reflect on the week, the words of Vishamru.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם, ברית עולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש.
If you're able and willing and you want to, I invite you to rise on page 46 for the opening meditation to the Amidah. Then we'll chant the first three blessings of the Amidah together on 48, 50, and 52, and then have a moment of silent meditation. I invite you to let your thoughts wander, and then when you're done with that personal prayer, you can be seated.
Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la la la. Ufi yagiti latecha, Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevi Geula livnei bneihem, Leman Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, v'chayei hakol atah rav lehoshia, Mashiv haruach u'rid hagashem, מחלקל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדום מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
We now say a prayer for healing, for those in need of healing of body or healing of spirit. We pray for healing and recovery when possible, and when not, we pray for wholeness and peace. Tonight, we especially keep in mind Mason Easley, Holly Margolis, Rabbi Rob Nosanchuk, Peggy Pizzo, Earl Wentworth, Norman Zilber, and Joseph Patrick James Daly. Let's join together.
Healer of the brokenhearted, binder of our wounds, counter of uncountable stars, you know who we are. Har ofelish
As we know, this week was Veterans Day, November 11th, and it's important for us as a Jewish community to remember that this is more than just a day off of school, or maybe a day off of work, or maybe a day where our mail doesn't arrive. That we know that we should honor our veterans, the people that have dedicated so much service to this wonderful country that we live in. And with that, it's a delight to welcome as our speaker, our sermon giver this evening, Seth Cairo, who is involved at Beth Am as a member of the Orchard, and lives in Cupertino with his wife, married to Ariel, who grew up at Beth Am and were married, and Rabbi Marder officiated their wedding just a few years ago. Seth served from 2006 to 2012 as a submarine officer in the United States Navy, and he achieved the rank of lieutenant commander. And it's a delight to have him zoom in tonight to offer words of reflection in this sacred Shabbat, where we honor our veterans.
Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to thank Rabbi Jonathan and Beth Am for inviting me to speak to the congregation in honor of Veterans Day. As Rabbi Jonathan mentioned, I served as an officer in the United States Navy. The difficulties that our nation and our community are facing this year have brought me new perspectives on my military service, and in turn, being a veteran has shaped how I view today's events. The origins of Veterans Day stretch back over 100 years, when Armistice Day recognized the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, when a cessation of hostilities ended the First World War. After the trauma of World War II and the Korean War, the day was renamed to honor all veterans. Today, there are 19 million American veterans, less than 6% of the US population, who dedicated some part of their lives to defending the freedom and values which we often take for granted. To all of them and their families, I say thank you. The earliest inkling that I might join their ranks one day was listening to my grandfathers, the children of immigrants, tell stories of their service during World War II. My maternal grandfather, Seymour, served as a junior officer on a landing craft support ship in the Pacific. And my paternal grandfather, Leon, served as a radio operator in the Army Air Corps, stationed stateside. Their contributions to the war effort were modest, but listening to them, I absorbed their overwhelming sense of duty and pride from having done their part to defeat Nazism and fascism. This year, the greatest generation observes the 75th anniversary of that victory. Yad Vashem estimates that 1.5 million Jews served in the Allied armies during World War II, often in higher proportions than the overall Jewish population. They answered the call to fight oppression, with hundreds of thousands giving their lives in the process. For many who survived, their service was both a point of pride and a source of unknowable trauma before they knew to call it PTSD. Seymour, for instance, wouldn't speak of the absolute devastation he observed visiting Hiroshima after the war, not least to a 10-year-old. This idea to serve my country didn't leave me. When I started looking at colleges, the US Naval Academy was high on my list. Then the terrorist attacks of September 11th occurred, perhaps the Pearl Harbor of our time. And the reality of military service wasn't just putting on a dress uniform and marching between classes. The invasion of Afghanistan took place as I was taking SATs and writing college essays. As I thought about my grandparents and the contributions that I hope to describe to my grandchildren one day, the choice to serve and play an active role fighting extremism and terrorism became clear. For my parents, my decision to enter the military was a source of anxiety. As liberal Jews who had come of age amid the war in Vietnam, their ideas of service skewed more toward the Peace Corps than the Marine Corps. They worried for my safety, but as loving parents, they supported me in this choice. I was fortunate that a forward-thinking recruiter had me apply for a Naval ROTC scholarship in addition to the Naval Academy. When I was accepted to my first choice school, Stanford University, I had secured a path to a world-class education and an opportunity to serve my country. Actually, being a student and an ROTC midshipman was a case study in extremes. While I was learning the proper way to shine shoes and march in formation, I was also learning about the rhetoric of anti-war protest in my freshman writing seminar. Every week I would fight traffic up to Berkeley for ROTC classes and then be yelled at by residents as I walked through campus in uniform. When I graduated from Stanford, I received my commission as an ensign in the US Navy and proceeded to 18 months of submarine training. We take for granted that people in the military have to move around a lot. In my 6 years in the Navy, I had 7 different addresses. Through these moves, it was observing the Jewish festivals, and especially the high holidays, that became a source of religious continuity amid all the transition. My family often traveled in so I wouldn't be observing alone. My parents and grandmother were immensely proud to watch me graduate atop my class from Nuclear Power School in Charleston, South Carolina. And together we celebrated Rosh Hashanah later that weekend. After a long winter in upstate New York, learning how to operate a land-based nuclear reactor, and a welcome spring in Groton, Connecticut, learning navigation and submarine tactics, I made the cross-country drive to my new home port of San Diego. The journey wasn't quite over. After flying to Okinawa, Japan, I finally reported to my boat, the USS Asheville, during a brief stop midway through their 6-month deployment. I spent the high holidays that year, my second in the Navy, praying and fasting on my own while submerged at sea. In the Navy, I was typically the only Jewish person in a room, and that was certainly true of the 130-person crew of the Asheville. We, though, were a diverse melting pot of American society, and some of my closest friends today are the officers with whom I served. Typically, I need to explain to people what living on a submarine for 6 months is like, but I feel that this far into COVID, you have all already experienced it for yourselves. Except on the submarine, we had no sunlight, little fresh air, fresh groceries came about once a month, and no internet, live TV, or social media. For the first half of my career, they even permitted smoking on board. While attached to the Asheville, I held many jobs. But my favorite I want to share with you, and it was getting to surface the ship as officer of the deck, typically just before dawn, and being the first person to climb the long ladder to the bridge, open the hatch, and breathe the first fresh air in weeks. Then I would enjoy the stillness of the ocean, often with a pod of dolphins swimming alongside, as we made our way back to port. During my 3rd year in the Navy, and my first high holidays physically in San Diego, I went looking for a local synagogue to attend, and in doing so, found a Jewish tailgate for a Tuesday night Padres-Cubs game. It was at that tailgate that I met Ariel, a lifelong Beth Am congregant and now my wife. Having met Ariel, and then us being separated for 6 months during my second submarine deployment, taught me about sacrifice and gave me a truer appreciation for what we give up to serve our country. On this Veterans Day Shabbat, I wanted to leave you all with 3 thoughts about how to engage with the military and the veteran community. First, take time to honor the veterans in your life, in your community. Among the more surprising revelations from a visit to the Jewish Museum in Berlin was a small exhibit on the Nazi removal and destruction of World War I veteran markers from Jewish graves. It was their attempt to erase the collective German memory and recast history in a more convenient light. Ariel's great-grandfather, before immigrating to America, had served on the German side during the Great War and was awarded their equivalent of a Purple Heart after being shot in the pinky toe. He was a proud German veteran until Germany no longer took pride in him. When I left active duty in 2012 and moved back to the Bay Area, I found it difficult to fill the void that the Navy had occupied in my identity. I remained in the Navy Reserve, inactive, for many years for that reason. But I had a loving family, a strong support network, and was beginning a new career in management consulting to help me adapt. Many veterans are not so fortunate and struggle to replace their sense of self outside the well-defined military structure. We see too many examples of this in our community, where mental illness, substance abuse, and homelessness are too prevalent among veterans. I became involved in the Stanford Military Service Network, an alumni organization, to help fellow veterans and to build bridges across the military-civilian divide in this country. Which brings me to a second point. As American Jews, we need to continue to be part of the conversation around the military. Even as a veteran myself, I struggle to name Jewish American military heroes. Admiral Hyman Rickover, the father of the nuclear navy, Commodore Uriah Levy, an early force for tolerance in the Navy before the Civil War. My grandfathers? I typically think of the men and women of the Israel Defense Force, the IDF, when it comes to modern Jewish bravery. But preparing for this talk, I read the citations of the 24 or so Jewish recipients of the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest decoration for acts of courage and valor. I grew emotional reflecting on their gallantry, selflessness, and sacrifice. But these 24 are less than 1% of all the medals of honor awarded. Why? Was it that many of our ancestors arrived from the old world after the Civil War? Did anti-Semitism keep earlier Jewish war heroes from receiving due recognition? Are fewer American Jews joining the military these days? All these are likely true. Similar to how I was the only Jewish voice in the submarine wardroom, as progressive Jews, we need to become a larger part of the conversation around military service, institutional justice within the service branches, and most importantly, the employment of military power to promote our values around the globe. And third, please keep politics out of the military and the military out of politics. A hallmark of military custom and discipline is to avoid any semblance of partisan politics. I followed that example, shown to me by other officers, and didn't donate money to political candidates. Like many norms in recent years, the separation between the military and politics has broken down across the political spectrum. On the left, Army Colonel Alexander Vindeman was singled out and heroized for testifying against the president regarding Ukraine. On the right, political intervention resulted in the heinous acts of Navy SEAL Chief Gallagher to go unpunished after he was accused of war crimes by his platoon. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs was used for a partisan photo op amid protests over social justice. The list goes on. The military doesn't want to and shouldn't be put into these situations. And finally, this Veterans Day comes at a time of immense change in this country and in the world. The recent election has been a referendum on many topics, but not least is the role of the United States in global affairs. As an American, I hope that we as a nation are returning to be a force for good in the world. Along with economic trade, diplomacy, and multilateral civilian institutions, the military plays an important role in how we engage with our neighbors. And as a Jew and a veteran, I hope that the messianic words of Isaiah are coming closer to a reality. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, nor shall they learn war anymore. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, Seth, and thank you for your service. We continue with Aleinu L'Shabeach on the bottom of page 282. If you're able, please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Page 287.
נאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
You can be seated. We prepare for the prayer of memory, page 290. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be, and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me. Your laugh once lifted me. Your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. As I say the name of your loved one, if you'd like to rise in their honor, then we'll all rise and recite Kaddish together. This week, the Beth Am community mourns the loss of Rose Rinsky, wife of Brian Rinsky, mother of Isabel and Olivia, daughter-in-law of Susan and Larry Rinsky, sister-in-law of Josh and Holly Rinsky, and Rob and Nicole Rinsky. Frida Kosman, mother of Randy Seiger, grandmother of Alicia Seiger, and Mark Hayes, great-grandmother of Anna and Zoe Hayes. And Lorraine Seelig, wife of Jerry Seelig, mother of Tina Seelig, mother-in-law of Michael Tenefos, and grandmother of Joshua Tenefos. We're observing Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning, for Linda King, Catalina Pelk, Joanne Jacobs, Jae Young Hwang, and Betty Carr. And we are observing the yahrzeit, the anniversary of death this week, of our beloved Rabbi Emeritus, Rabbi Sidney Axelrod, Harriet Allen, Edward Benjamin, Dorothy Bernstein, Evelyn Esther Burson, Marcia Bjork, Luba Sessman, John Ciccone, Peggy Martin Daly Clare, Ken Corey, Dorothy David, Riesel Dondick, Paul Crane Dorfman, Yetta Elias, Martha Elspass, Barbara Faber, Ella Fail, Sue Feldstein, Helen Finkelberg, Stella Frankel, Matt Gans, Jean Gillespie, Berta Grock, Edith Granick, Rick Green, Harriet Gull, Sylvia Height, Ida Hine, Philip Hertz, Helen Goldberg Hertz, Regina Hoffenberg, Reuben Hoffman, Balda Hoffman, Ruth Horowitz, Sharon Niemoff Jones, Jane Kellman, Harold Kaiser, Doris Jean Lasky Lewis, Evelyn Lauder, Jean Levy Srago, Dan McEnany, Danny Myers, Elaine Michael, Goldie Miller, Arthur Morrison, Sarah Neidich, Yafim Nechamkin, David Odeski, Walter Osterfeld, Morton Owens, Alan Politzer, Herb Rattay, Saul Rosenberg, Malka Rubenstein, Irv Rusoff, Al Sakin, Abraham Salop, Jerry Sardell, Sam Sarver, Moise Shoiket, Ruth Schulman, Israel Schumacher, Mark Silver, Jessica Simmons, George Smith, Sydney Aaron Snyder, Yetta Spiro Snyder, Julius Samuel Teen, Anthony Temple Cope, Sidney Weil, Marvin Weisbrod, Eugene M. Weiss, and Shirley Wolfson. If you're remembering someone tonight, please rise and say their names aloud. We turn to page 294 for the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha barichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. Together we say, amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen.
This month we are collecting tzedakah for La Sova. It's a Tel Aviv-based nonprofit that provides meals and shelter to vulnerable populations throughout Israel. You can learn more on our website and donate there, or you can send a check to the Betham office. We'd also like to invite you, following the service, to check out the very new foyer, or foyer, if you prefer. And it's a chance to schmooze and greet some folks from Betham virtually. So you can find the link to get the Zoom link right there. Look at that. Look at how happy those people look. You want to be like them. So join us. You can also find the link right under the box on the streaming page, and see some Betham friends on this Shabbat. We will conclude with a very special final song that Cantor Spall is going to tell us about.
Yes, well, we're going to join together in Adon Olam. This is maybe you know this one. It's a Hasidic melody for Adon Olam. The words are found on page 321. We're going to sort of do the first two verses and then the last verse. So see if you recognize this one. Adon Olam Asher Malach, Hai didi dai didi dai didi dai, B'terem kol yitzir nivra, Hai didi dai didi dai didi dai, Le'ed nasa v'chefzo kol, Hai dai didi didi dai dai, Hai zay melech shemo nikra, לכלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה, והוא יהיה בתפארה. אדון עולם אשר מלך, היי דידי די דידי די די די, בטרם כל יציר נברא, היי דידי די דידי די די די, לעת נשא וחפצו כל, היי די דידי די די די, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, היי די 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 די, Adonai li velo ira. Adon olam asher malach, hay didi di 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 di, b'terem kol yitzir nivra, hay didi di di di, le'et nasa v'chefzo kol, hay di di, azay melech shemo nikra, hay di.
Let's say the blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.